Welcome, everybody. Oh, my goodness. We're going to have a talk today about forgiveness, and it was inspired by one of our dear ladies, our sisters that I was talking to earlier today. It's also inspired by a talk that I'm going to be giving to high school students later this week. And these are students at a faith-based school. For those of you who do have a belief in do follow a spiritual path or religious path, you'll feel, I hope, right at home today in this discussion. But even for those of you who don't have a particular spiritual path, I hope you'll still draw the truth out from what I'm going to be talking about today, because whether you are a spiritual person, a believer, or just a good person, you are one of those three. You fit in one of those three categories to be with us, to be in our secret sister sorority. So for those of you who know me, you know I'm a believer. I'm a woman of faith, and I couldn't do this work without it. But because I'm a woman of faith, the way I approach it is I do believe in good and evil. I don't think I could do this work without coming to terms with that belief in good and evil. If you've ever seen or read the book Heart of Darkness, or there's the movie, I think Apocalypse Now, that was based on that movie. You see Marlon Brando, the heart of the jungle, the heart of darkness, coming to terms with what he has done and the havoc and destruction and death that he has wrought. And he has his head in his hands, and he's saying, the horror, the horror. So how can we come to terms with that kind of acknowledgement of a person that we thought loved us, and who we thought we loved, and actually probably did love? And maybe at some point in your life, this was the love of your life, and you felt like you're going to spend the rest of your life with this person. And what happened? What went wrong? What did you do wrong? And it hurts my heart when I hear ladies say that, when they are in any way blaming themselves for getting into this kind of relationship, because it's not that there was anything wrong with you. It's that there was something so right with you, so pure and good, so good about you. Your kindness, your compassion, your empathy, your self-reflection. These are all the things that lead you into a kind of relationship with other people that share those qualities, but also predators that take advantage of those qualities. Now, what happens as you move through that relationship and you're in it and he does something that hurts you? How do you handle that? The first time he does that, he hurts you, what do? Do you sort of treat it as a one-off? Think to yourself quietly, well, maybe I won't say anything this time. If he does it again, maybe I'll bring it up. Do you make a little note, write it in your diary, or just file it at the back of your mind? What happens if he does it again? What happens if it starts to become a pattern? What happens when you point it out to him? How does he respond? Does he apologize? Does he say it'll never happen again? And do you see by his behavior, the way he conducts himself, that in fact, he was sincere in his apology and asking you to forgive him for hurting you? And do you see by his behavior that he's making every effort to do better and be better? That's good. That's good news. That's a good man. Is that the man you were with? Do you recognize him now? Is that the man you wanted him to be? But are you recognizing something very different about him now? That can you cast your mind back to a time when you pointed out something that he did that hurt you? And how did he respond? What did he say? Did he throw it back at you? Or did he blow it off? Did he tell you you're being too sensitive? Did he deny it? Minimize it? Did he apologize and do it again? Did he make fun of you? Did he just do more and more and more of what hurt you? That's a really important question, because how he responds and how you respond to his response is going to determine what happens in the relationship next, because these guys are going to test your boundaries. And if you haven't figured out what your boundaries are and how to recognize when they're being tested, probed, breached, violated, then you're going to end up staying in a relationship for a long, long time And if you are capable of self-reflection and compassion and empathy and forgiveness, and have a heart for the suffering that he might have experienced as a child growing up in his own traumatic childhood, then those are things that can be weaponized. All of those things can be weaponized. Your ability to look within and say, what was my role in this? Did I provoke him? Is there something that I could have done differently? And watch out if you end up in couples counseling, because they'll be asking you those same questions. Does he ask himself those questions? Does he? Is he capable of self-reflection? Is he willing to go there? Is he willing to say, I hurt you. I'm sorry. I never want to hurt you because I love you. And like even thinking about, what does love mean? How do you define love? Super important to define love and what it looks like. It's not just a word, not just something you say at the altar, or it's not just something you say when you want to have sex. It's not just something you say to make everything go away like it never happened. That's what these guys do. Love doesn't mean possession. Love doesn't mean you get to continue to hurt somebody, especially when you know that you've hurt them. Some of our ladies say, well, like maybe he didn't mean to, or maybe he is sorry, but he just can't, just it has a hard time acknowledging it. Maybe let's not think about the intent, whether he meant to hurt you so much as the outcome. And then if he has hurt you, how does he respond to having hurt you? Does he seem to take some kind of satisfaction out of it? Does he seem to take some kind of pleasure out of it? Does he seem to be oblivious to it? Does he seem to be ambivalent about it? I think of that image, and I think it's etched in everybody's mind. The police officer with his knee on the neck of George Floyd. Did you see the expression on his face? Was it anger? Was it outrage? Do you see how blank it was? That is the banality of evil. The banality of evil. So it doesn't have to have an angry face. It doesn't have to have a traumatized face reacting to the trauma of his youth. It could be the face of somebody that lacks empathy, lacks remorse, lacks self-reflection, lacks compassion, lacks kindness. And if you have been with or are with that kind of person, and you point out something they've done that hurt you, what you're doing is you're opening up your heart and you're saying, here's where to insert the sword. And how mind-blowing that is to come to terms with a kind of person like that you've given your heart to. And now he's figuring out ways to squeeze it, to hurt it, to control it, over time, perhaps to destroy it. So maybe you're not with that person anymore, and maybe you're struggling with, was it that bad? Can you think about how you felt in that relationship? How did you feel inside? Was the pilot light of your soul dimming? Were you at any point wondering if you were going to survive this? Did you end up with any kind of health issue as a result? So many of our ladies have had significant and life-threatening health issues after being in a relationship like this. Sometimes there's a history, not always. Sometimes there's no history of that kind of health issue in the family. But stress will take a tremendous toll on your system. Actually, what you're doing is you're living with somebody that's trying to destroy you over time. That's certainly what it looks like. And that's the end result. Let's not talk about intent right now, but the outcome, and especially if you ask for change, and yeah, there was change, it got worse, more frequent. So what do you do about forgiveness when you're talking about this kind of person? What does forgiveness mean? Just like what does love mean? What does forgiveness mean? So does forgiveness mean, now, especially if you come from a background where there's a lot of guilt attached to if you're involved in a particular religion that serves guilt on a platter at every service, wanting you to stay in a relationship with somebody because your role is, you made a commitment and a vow that you must honor for life, and it's all about forgiving sins, forgiving trespasses, and moving on. If any of you know the Lord's Prayer, have ever said it, one of the early lines is, one of the later lines is, deliver us from evil. So yeah, let's forgive trespasses, but please, God, deliver us from evil. And even Jesus said, don't cast your pearls before swine. And even God up in heaven, when Lucifer was getting a little too uppity, God's right-hand man got kicked out of heaven for abusing his power. So even God has limits. So maybe we can learn from that. And when we talk about the problem of evil, if somebody is causing you harm, the person that's supposed to love and protect you is causing you harm and continuing to cause you harm, when you've asked them to stop, when they're sowing seeds of division, when they're lying, when they're trying to separate you, put a wall between your children and you, trying to recruit them, turn them against you, what other word do you have for that but evil? And when we talk about forgiveness, forgiving somebody, okay, I forgive you, you hurt me. I forgive you, you hurt me. I forgive you, you hurt me. If you're talking about that kind of forgiveness, you're getting stuck in an endless, infinite loop. And if we're starting to talk about infinite, that's the realm of God. And that takes us way out of the mortal realm. So from my point of view, when we think about somebody that continues to hurt you and hurt you and hurt you, we're getting into the realm of evil there. And you don't heal evil. You don't take evil to couples counseling. You don't try to compromise or negotiate with evil. You ask God to deliver you from it. You protect yourself. Even Henry Cloud, Christian psychologist, talks about how to deal with evil. Guns, money, lawyers. Because what's the alternative? Staying in a relationship with that person, if they can't convert you, they're going to end up taking you down and destroying you. So it seems to me the only solution is to get out when you can, if you can, when you can. Everybody's got to decide on their own timeline. And sometimes it's safer to stay. Sometimes it's safer to go. It's everybody's individual decision. But once you're out, if you can get away from that kind of person, then it's about protecting yourself. And then maybe thinking about a new definition of forgiveness, if forgiveness is part of what makes you up as a person. So one definition is if you forgive somebody, you exonerate them. You wipe the slate clean. It's as if it never happened. Let's start again. Let's try again. And that's kind of what the court does. Okay, so he hit you. Okay, so he strangled you. Okay, so he did this in the past. That's the past. Let's move on. Next. Silo. But the problem with that is it continues to keep you in that relationship, keeps continuing to expose you to the person that hurt you once, hurt you twice, continues to hurt you and take you down. So to wipe the slate clean, to stay in a relationship with someone like that and continue to forgive, to exonerate, to wipe the slate clean, with somebody that is all about continuing to hurt you, to harm you, to wear you down, death by 1,000 cuts. That way lies death. To me, that's the end of that road. I can't see another alternative. If that's your definition of forgiveness, to wipe the slate clean, and to try again, always turn the other cheek. Jesus said, yeah, turn the other cheek. How many cheeks did he have? Well, I guess 4 total, if you count the other ones. But we have a limited number of cheeks. And even Jesus said, don't cast your pearls before swine. And swine, that's a big image in the Bible, right? But when there are lots of demons floating around, flying around. And when Jesus would cast them out of one person, they go into a swine. Is swine a singular? Is that the singular or plural? Is it one pig, 2 swine? I don't know. But anyway, those swine would, fly off a cliff, possessed by a demon. So what do you do when your partner seems to be possessed by a demon, possessed by evil? And if you don't like that word, how about intractable behavior? A character that is resistant to change, resistant to reform, that lacks empathy, remorse, self-reflection, honesty, moral compass, integrity. Let's talk about those things. And continues to hurt the person they're supposed to love and protect. Well, let's talk about a new definition of forgiveness then, shall we? With that kind of person that seeks to control you, dominate you, subjugate you, and the end result is destroy you. How do you forgive that kind of person? That's when maybe we can whip out another definition of forgiveness. And that's releasing them. Let's release them. And maybe let's turn it over to God to forgive. Because when we get into that realm of intractable behavior, it goes on forever. The only way it changes is it typically gets worse. And if it goes on forever, we're getting into the infinite realm. And that's when I would turn it over to God to deal with infinite things. So for me, as a mere mortal, when I think about forgiveness, here's a definition. Forgiveness, a conscious, deliberate decision to release feelings of resentment or vengeance toward a person or group who has harmed you, regardless of whether they actually deserve your forgiveness. I like that definition. Because the alternative could be to nurse a grievance. And that's probably what your partner, your ex, is doing, nursing a grievance against you. He's the opposite of forgiveness there, right? And that's what keeps him tied to you, wanting to hunt you down, to punish you, continue to control you, to act out that grievance against you. So if we're thinking about forgiveness in that way, I like that definition. Let's release the grievance, release him, and turn him over to God. Let go and let God. If you pet a shark and it bites you, well, that's its nature. Don't nurse a grudge against it. Don't keep petting it, re-exposing yourself to the thing that hurt you. And don't go all Captain Hook on it, nursing a grievance intent on revenge. That will turn you into someone you're not, someone like your abuser. Instead, forgive if it gives you peace, but do it from a safe distance. And if you talk to God, you can ask him to deliver you from the temptation of going back to pet the shark. Let God handle the shark.